Hello, 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 hello. I'm pause. Shit. 1 second. All right. Let's do it. Okay. Let's do it. Okay. Wait, where this should go? Oh, I didn't load. Okay. Okay. You know, I'm gonna do a different one because where are you? Where are you? There you are. I was gonna do someone else, but then I read the description. I was like, I'm gonna do that a different day. There's like a double order from, oh, this is a fun chart. Very similar to me. It's been a minute since I've done a chart that has a lot of similarities to mine. So let's do this. All right. Let's hide your last name and first name. And good. All right. I'm gonna go camera off for a little bit because no reason. Actually, because I like this with my crystals. I hurt my back so bad. Um, I put it in my story, but on Saturday I had like a out of nowhere panic attack. Um, like I was literally in therapy at my house and I blacked out. I don't remember anything from that entire day, maybe even a few days before that, but I just fucking fell. Like I just was like I didn't even remember I was in there. But um yeah, I don't even remember anything, but I hit my head super hard. It's better now. I'm very, very good at like recovering from things. But yeah, like I snapped my back. Like there's this like kind of thing between my shower and my bathroom. I don't know, like separator thing, and I'm pretty sure my back like snapped on that, and my head like nailed my head. Completely limp too. It's kind of scary. But I hope there's no problems. I think I'll be good. But that's why I'm not using this microphone because I have to lean over for it. But I use these for like most readings anyways. Let me just check the sound actually. Okay, test, 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 test. That's fine. That's good. Test again, test again, test again. Okay, wow, that's good. All right, so let's go stop video. Let's share screen, show you the chart. All right, so what we got here? A sip of my kombucha first. Well, we have a fellow Sag Moon who is an Aquarius. What a, I love that. I love that. I already like you. Already like you. And you know that me and you have a lot in common because we're both Sag Moons, and my Venus and Mars are in Aquarius, and my North Node. So we're best friends, and your ascendant is with your South Node. Ooh, I already got this one figured out already. But now I must communicate it. 29 degree Pluto. Damn, damn girl. Damn, damn, damn. Okay. Well, oh, and you got the Venus conjunct Mars and Pisces. Love it. That is the lover, the love, love, lover. So, oh, Esme came. I'll have to show you this. I don't know how much you follow my stories, but or Esme's Instagram at Esme Catstrology. If she comes during a reading, it is an honor. She is a great worker. Esme, are you gonna help me? Look at the chart and tell me what part I need to focus on. The sun and the vertex. Interesting. Thanks, Esme. You're a good girl. You can stay here. Let's actually check the Wi-Fi. Okay. So, yeah, basically, huh, I love that. So Esme really was fascinated by your son with Juno. Maybe that's what she's talking about. Yeah, it may seem weird that this little cat, that she comes. She doesn't come for every reading, but she never misses. And she looks exactly at point. I'm telling you, she's magic. She's also a Sag moon like us. All right, let's go back to what we're doing. So basically, all right, so we think about Sag moon, Aquarius sun. What a beautiful made in heaven combo. Why is that? Well, there's one thing that both of these love, and it is freedom. As a Sag moon, my favorite moon sign, that's not just because it's mine. I love Sag moon people, like love them so much. Um, for us, it's really, really important to to feel like we're growing, right? We're like it's a very future oriented. So that's one little warning sign, mini warning sign for Sag Moon. It's like sometimes we can be a little bit too in the future. However, you know, we it's very important for Sag Moon to like they're very, very good at at creating meaning. Um very good at creating meaning out of like something horrible can happen to Sag Moon and they'll still be able to create meaning about that's from that situation, which is obviously like an amazing quality. Um Sometimes the only time that's bad is when it goes too far. And how can it go too far? Well, for example, when there's actual traumatic stuff that happens to someone, sometimes you really have to feel those emotions, right? Right. And sometimes Sag moons don't want to do that. They'd rather, and I'm guilty of it, but sometimes they'd rather, you know, think, okay, um, like this horrible thing happens, and yeah, just not being willing to really feel the underlying emotions. Um, so yeah, it's important for them to do that. But besides that, internal optimists, people who, yeah, people who just really, Esme, what was that? You sneezed all over me. That's kind of gross, Esme. If you weren't so cute, I'd be mad at you. I've never felt a cat sneeze on me as much as Esme just did. Like, what is happening? But anyways, yeah, like they're optimists. They're Sag moons are here to grow. They're here to grow. They're here to learn. So, what is the emotional need of a Sag moon? They need to feel like their life is one big adventure, right? Um, they need that. They need that. They need that. They need that. And if they don't, things aren't good. If they feel like so sometimes with Sag moons, yeah, it's like they have to watch out sometimes for feeling like almost that addiction to change. And as an Aquarius, which is all about freedom and independence and being in touch with your core individuality, um, being very much in your authentic self, it's just, it's important when you combine those two. Like Sag Moon's definitely, and Aquarius Sun are not going to do good held back in any way, right? They're not, it's just not going to work. Um, they need to really be feeling like anything is possible in their lives. So that goes with the relationships too, right? Um, they can't, they need a certain level of space, a certain level of freedom. And as an Aquarius, you're very good at seeing, at really like, the beauty. What my favorite thing about Aquarius is that like they don't try so hard to be like to fit in and to just be like everyone else. They're willing to just be different. Of course, some like taking too every good quality can be taken too far, right? The taking too far of that is when they're such rebels that they're going to a crazy extent to try to prove that they're different. That's the only time. Only time. But it does give you that understanding, like, okay, like I'm not gonna work in a certain type of relationship, um, where I'm expected to be a certain way. Like that just won't work. That just will not work. Um, let me see one thing. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so basically the combo of sun sextile moon is beautiful, right? You see 17 and 18, they're 60 degrees away. So usually what that means, not always, but usually it's speaking to both, the parents um having had a similar philosophy, although I have seen, that's why I'm kind of not like saying like this is definite, but mostly when you have sun sextile moon, it speaks to like how both parents, the overall messages that they would have pushed forward to you would be pretty similar, right? Pretty similar. So that is good. What can happen in some people's charts, or life/chart, throughout the charts, is that they can have parents that have such different natures that it's really hard for them to kind of like realize like, okay, it's tough for them to kind of bring these two energies together and to have them work with each other. So for you, I imagine that, and it's not necessarily like, okay, they for sure, got along well, because you do have a 12th house moon, which usually points to some issue with the mother. Not always, but most of the time it points to that. And the issue can be anything. It can be anything from like it could easily be like a good mother that just wasn't present enough, whatever, right? But sometimes the moon is the dad, and it's very, very hard in today's world to know who's who. So with that said, there, yeah. So the Sag moon in the 12th, um, traveling, Sag moons need to experience different cultural worldviews. Um, Sag moon at the end of the day is about truth. You know, um, if you think about Dharma, right? Dharma is what you're like, kind of like the highest level of like what you're doing in this world. So thinking about Dharma, I don't like to call it career because some people, um, their career is not necessarily their biggest Dharma. Some people's Dharma might be more around spirituality. It's very tough to tell. Um, but it's kind of like the accumulation of everything, right? So in this case, or in all cases, actually, your dharma, your dharma comes from your truth, right? So the person who is, I've said this too many times, but whatever, it's a good example. Like if someone believes everything they're taught at school, everything about the mainstream media, everything that's kind of like purported in society, they're gonna have a lot different of a life path, right? In terms of like maybe their career, maybe what they think is important to be doing with their time, than someone who's just like, or even like an example of someone who's anti spirituality compared to someone who's very spiritual, right? It's going to definitely impact what they believe is important to do with their time, right? So, um, that part about where you get your beliefs from, that is Sagittarius, ninth house. So for yours to be in the house of Pisces, um, 12th house, it would give you a big emotional need for things, topics that go beneath the surface. It would also give you, with having Neptune and Uranus in that 12th house with Jupiter, I would not be surprised in the least bit if you had, I don't like saying psychic abilities, but very, very like some talents, whether you found them or not, right? Because my belief is that yes, we have, it's like muscles, right? And different people have different potentials for them. You definitely got that. But I would think with those three planets and the moon in the 12th, if I would almost be surprised if you didn't have a super dialed in intuition, like understanding, especially when it comes to like the societal zeitgeist. Um, just having like a deep understanding of like how things are happening, or excuse me, not how things, just like, yeah, like understanding the truth. So when the moon, when all those planets are in the 12th, it's gonna have someone be, have a very, very spiritual outlook. Someone who is going to um really want to see beneath the surface, right? A 12th house Jupiter, just the Jupiter part in Sag, right? Which is like a very good teacher. Like that's the energy of the teacher, right? Um, it the way I look at it is that um, it lights up the areas of life that most people are afraid to look at. You see? So, for you, it's like there's this accessibility, and with um, Jupiter conjunct Neptune, right? Is that so if you think about the 12th house as where this dark place where you're discovering the deeper the deeper topics, right? The deeper areas of life per se. Um, where you're understanding how things are working beneath the surface, so forth, within and without. Having the planet of expansion, Jupiter, there is like a flashlight in this dark house. So you're very in tune with the collective unconscious, whether you know it or not, which can be very overwhelming. And on that point, it could make being in a very dense place. Wow, are you really in Illinois? I just did someone from Chicago. Um, but yeah, basically, it just makes one understand, um, and really also want to understand how things really, really work. So, hmm. Mm, 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 mm. All right. Well, so then, having Uranus with Jupiter, Uranus in the 12th is literally like someone who receives downloads. It's someone who is in the fact that the moon is there and Neptune, right? It's like you're so you can when you're able to meditate and calm the mind down, anything is possible. You can like just attract energy and deeper understanding. That's why I think with any Neptune 12th house energy, I always tell the people about the importance and how useful video camera, filming yourself, or talking into mirrors can be, right? It's super, super, it can be very life changing. So, yeah, it's important. Like just the idea of, for example, okay, I'm gonna do this, and I say this to a lot of my clients. I have a lot of clients who have a 12th house Pisces, something to do with that energy, right? With Pisces 12th house. But yeah, it just you can gain so much understanding of yourself by doing things like that. So it is good. It is very good. Mhm. Having yeah, so Uranus will bring the downloads, and it'll just bring this understanding. You're like, how did I know that? How did I know that? Neptune in the 12th, and it's rising. So that's very important because that means you are a Capricorn rising, but it's almost like kind of like my cat Esme. She's Neptune rising with Pisces, but like it makes you kind of like almost like a Pisces, Capricorn slash Pisces rising in a sense. I know it sounds extreme, but it really is like that. It really is like that. So, but in the 12th, so there's a few ways that that it hits, right? So in the 12th, it's natural home. So it does feel very, very good there. Um, it just makes one so in touch with everything, with everything going on and in the energies in their environment and just with the spiritual world, like you have this like amazing ability to really, really tap in. So it's very rare. And of course, I've done charts of people who have these potentials, but they are kind of their own worst nightmare. And the 12th house moon, it does, there is a part of it that needs to define itself in a way, which isn't always easy. But um, you know, by all these other energies in there, it's just clear to me that the more you develop, what I say so often in readings, the more you develop that spiritual relationship with the self, the better everything gets. The better everything gets. Um, so with that aside, let's see here. Hold on. Yeah. So, because what can happen is that there can be a part of the self that almost can allow itself to lose itself in the unknown, which can feel good, but for even like a very, very spiritual person, it's important to still have that kind of definition around the self. It can be very easy to lose that. Um, so yeah, it's important. Important to kind of like, always know who you are and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, that's just like such a like an amazing thing. So Sag Moon, as I was saying before, it's happiest when it is allowing itself to live life as like just one big exploration, Life is just one big adventure. Of course, the 12th house part of it, definitely speaks to the need for that esoteric adventure, that esoteric, but like it goes back to what I was saying before, um about the groundingness, about what it goes back to what I was saying about shit, I just totally lost my train of thought. I was thinking about something else. Well, it'll come back to me, whatever. But yeah, like basically, with that heavy 12th house, the environment's so important. The environment, I cannot stress it enough how important the environment is. Um, like the environment, the friends you surround yourself with, you surround yourself with, etc. Like utmost importance, right? Um, the wrong types of people for someone with a chart like that can really, really lead one astray. Um, so it's just really important to know that. Um, really, really important to know that. Now, if you live honestly, like with Neptune rising, I feel like people with Neptune rising do really well when they live by water, or at least when they, when they incorporate a lot of water into their life, you know, not just like drinking a lot of water, but taking baths, um, stuff like that. It's important. It brings intuition. But I think, one big thing is that as a Neptune rising, you can definitely, so there's this really interesting mix of solidity, right? It is like Capricorn risings are solid. They're able to work really hard. They're able to kind of push back against different setbacks that come up inevitably in everyone's life. Um, and just keep rolling. Now, they also can get projected on a lot by other people. Um, so that's why, like, as a 12th house moon with Neptune rising, Capricorn, it's, you know, it's very, very important to have like a solid self-definition, right? If the self-definition is not solid, then that thing can happen where one starts to, I guess, kind of lose sight of who they are, um, and allow other people's projections to kind of guide that definition, which is never good. Um, that's the one thing. But like really, like a Neptune rising person is an empath. They're someone who has this very loving energy, right? And your Neptune is on the, very close to the galactic center. So, that's quite nice, quite nice, quite nice. And yeah, I think overall it's just very good. Definitely, a major empath. Um, and with the North Node in Cancer, well, the reading I just did before this was the opposite. North Node in Capricorn, South Node in Cancer. But, you know, having the South Node on the ascendant with Neptune to me is it's showing that you have been maybe even like I've never said this before. That's kind of like spiritual leader vibe. Like if you think of Neptune and Capricorn, or just like a great artist, could be an artist. Maybe you're Van Gogh. Um, you know, it really, really South Node on the ascendant. It's speaking to, obviously the South Node is the been there, done that, right? So in this case, the been there, done that would be related to what's the word? Very, very independent. Very, very independent, and just someone who has this past life tendency to kind of do things their own way, and maybe has lacked that ability to compromise when it comes to relationship. So there is definitely um a need in any relationships you have to 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 try to figure out different, or I don't want to say different, but like, I don't know um how you are, but even as like an Aquarius sun, once again, it's all about doing things with freedom and doing things that are kind of, you know, doing things that are the way you want to do them, right? So with the North Node in, North South Node, obviously, the been there, done that in past lives. It's not a bad point. It's just what you're trying to move away. You're trying to use it to move towards the North Node in Cancer. That is the ultimate, like trying to get more in touch with your feminine side in this lifetime. So it's common for South Node in Capricorn that there could have been like a recent gender switch um, from the last lifetime. Um, and it's just very fascinating. Some people I've talked to who, have had this, they have told me like, yeah, like I I always, like felt like a tomboy or something like that. It's not a for sure thing, but like when I say gender, I'm speaking about that from an astrological perspective, right? Um so, it really really just refers to getting in touch with the emotions and getting into relationships, right? More Cancerian relationships. And now this shows exactly with your Venus and Mars in Pisces. So it's very interesting to have Aquarius sun, right? That independent, that rebel, that person that, in the second house. So there is some real groundedness there, right? It's someone who um, is firm in their identity, regardless of whether it's normal or you, like I said, usually Aquarius Sages are, very like very philosophical, and they spend a lot of time thinking and kind of crafting their life in a way that fits their authentic self. It's quite awesome. Now with um with that energy in Cancer in the seventh house, it could literally be that, okay, you are your individual self. Now, here is the question. How are you going to set a life up for yourself where you can still keep your own individuality within relationships? Because a North Node on the descendant, which rules, the seventh house cusp, is literally, it's saying that your relationships, there's a lot of fate that's playing out in them. In the romantic relationships, there's a lot of fate. So yeah, it's just important to know that, and that to know that each person that comes your way in life, um, there's a deeper reason. There's a deeper reason related to the karma, and different karmic imbalances in past life. So I would ponder that. And like I always say, astrology is the interplay of the chart and free will. So if you feel like you have done, a really good job in this sense, then, then maybe you've been, working very good in terms of your karmic this karmic lesson. Now, let's see one thing. Yeah, so it's not saying that you're not supposed to be Capricornian. It's not saying that you're not, supposed to be independent. I mean, that's a big part of who you are. You cannot lock a Sag moon down. Like, unless they feel like, their life is benefited by being with someone, they're not gonna want to, they're not gonna be they're not gonna, like, a Sag is the last person that's gonna want to be with someone just to be with them, just because it looks cool. you know? So yeah, it's just like it's really about balancing out these two and really using your creativity to craft these relationships. Now, when we talk about just the Cancerian aspect of that and a South Node on the ascendant, my first thought always goes to, okay, there's a good chance that maybe it's on a creative level, just on a life level, like I was saying before, that there wasn't enough compromise. Um, there's something maybe like that kind of potentially kept you away from wanting to make um from wanting to compromise. Maybe, like I said, maybe you were just you have a tendency, maybe you have a tendency to be very, very artistic, very, very into, like a leader, someone who has big karmic responsibilities. What just happened to my chart? There it is. So yeah, it's not about doing things that make you feel uncomfortable because you are someone who's has a big, big dharma. Look at Pluto on your midheaven. That's massive. I don't see that often. But and then your loaded first house, right? So it's like really it's actually really similar to my life. I don't like to talk about myself much on here. Um, it's like kind of something I hate doing, but when there's like a example, like okay, basically I'm in a relationship, but um I'm very, very clear about my need for space and my need to retain my own independence. I think that most relationships go wrong. And of course, it's different for everyone, but me and you, we have similar astrology. But I think a lot of relationships go wrong basically when people get sick of each other, or when people um, don't give each other energetic breaks, don't have their own space. Some people are different, and that's good for them. They're able to kind of live their life, um, always, I guess, surrounded by someone, and that's fine. It's just different strokes for different folks, right? So, um, yeah, I think that the kind of mainstream consensus of relationship is I don't think it works for everyone. I don't think it works for everyone. I don't think it's made to work for everyone. I think that a lot of people struggle with it. I think a lot of people struggle with it and I think that they just I've talked to people about this before, some people they just look, they look at they look at other people, they look at their parents, they look at society, blah blah blah, people older than them and they think, oh, this is how I should be. But they don't feel into themselves and really wonder like, does this make me feel good? Does this truly make me feel good? And the divorce rates are absolutely crazy. So I think it's quite advanced to be able to be honest about those things. Um, because with a loaded first house like this, it's gonna feel very natural. It's gonna feel natural. To be your own not be your own person, but to be someone who really ultimately is able to kind of just live with themselves, for themselves, blah blah blah. So yeah, you're really being asked like so. And one thing about a Capricorn South Node and um, a North Node in Cancer is that sometimes the South Node in Capricorn person has to really learn karmically to dive into their emotions more, um, potentially feel things that they might not be the best to feel. But cancer is that's what cancer is about. Cancer is about that very thing. Um, so yeah, it's just important for sure. So let's see. And also like one thing about Capricorn also is that there can be stuck emotional patterns, right? So it's like, or I call them crystallized emotional patterns. So yeah, it's like through the Cancerian watering process, one is able to, yeah, to liquefy those emotions, basically liquefying the liquefying the crystallized emotional pattern. That's the goal. The goal. Hmm, hmm, hmm. And then of course, the South Node ruler Saturn is in the 11th house. So that would speak to, people who have that kind of placement. Um, they typically have their mantra is typically fewer but better friends. That's kind of how it is. Fewer friends but better ones. And because it's Scorpio ruling the 11th house, I think that there's definitely some level of really wanting people around you who are going to help you get to that next level. And people with similar goals, with similar, that you can really be, break through different societal conditioning with. And people, yeah, who you can really keep it real with. That's really important. Really, really important. Now, let's see. It's just done. Okay. So one other thing, so with the Sag moon, it's a fire moon at the end of the day, right? So the fact that it's square Mars from the 12th, it could mean that your emotions, like, like like my advice for someone with that would be to have a workout physical outlet to burn off any kind of nervous energy, if I'll call it like that. Um, it's just important. And the square with Mars can kind of make it can cause someone to have reactions come from like a very like hidden place. And yeah, so it's not like there can just be like random, like people who have that a lot of times they can just have like random explosions. One other thing about Sag Moon that I didn't really get into is, one of the other things is like Sag Moons tend to spend so much time finding that quote unquote truth, right? And sometimes they have difficulty like understanding that everyone comes to their own version of truth at their own time. And um sometimes they can be a little bit dogmatic, and sometimes they can try to push their truth on other people too much. I know I used to be guilty of this when I, first got into astrology. I was just like, wow, this thing is so amazing. Like everyone should like how is everyone not, learning about this? I want all my people to learn about this. And it just doesn't work. I don't know how else to say it, and people are ultimately going to come to that conclusion on their own. So that's kind of like a Sag Moon lesson. So yeah, then the sun in Aquarius is with Juno, so that's definitely giving like a very a very, very smooth kind of energy to someone who has that. Now I think another thing about that is that it speaks also to just the importance of relationships and the how important marriage or just like a very, very big deal relationship is slash will be whatever, I don't know your situation, to your life purpose, and it also speaks to the importance of having someone who gives that space, that's just so important. Who gives that space, because yeah, like I said, Aquarius is the best sign for giving space and allowing other people to grow as their own individuals, kind of with the kind of breakdown I was giving about relationships, right? So yeah, it's definitely a specialty for these peeps. And having a second house sun, as I was speaking to before, it's like it definitely is good to have that. In Aquarius, because Aquarius, it just makes it it will give one kind of like a natural groundedness and a natural kind of it's very good for identity. Second house suns, they do have to, make sure that they have one, like that they're not too much in the material realm. It's obviously second house suns, like, they will be, they'll have that tendency to be like that, um, to be go-getters and stuff. But it really comes down to how you value yourself, and you know, it's just important to not have those values be only based on like the work or material, anything material. Um, just having a nice balance between those two, it's really important. Um, but yeah, like anyone who like I always think about the sun sign in terms of the karmic energy, and I think that when you combine the North Node in Cancer with Aquarius, Sun, Sag, Moon, these signs, it, it doesn't form a kite in terms of the angle, but the energy of it is like that, in the sense that or not kite. What am I thinking of? I can't think of the name right now. Happens to the best of us. But basically, the whole point is that Aquarius and Sag are very, very different than the energy you're trying to become more, which is Cancer, in touch with the emotions. Aquarius are known for being somewhat aloof emotionally. Sag Moon, it's not that we're not emotional, it's that we're like, a Sag Moon is not gonna think back into the past like a lot. I mean, I have yet to meet a Sag Moon who's who's not future oriented. Like, they are, you know, people who are more, it's not like they're never going to think about the past, but they're more in the future. And yeah, they'll have moments, but yeah, more so in the future. So, I think that's something that's important. Yeah, definitely, definitely, definitely. Um, let's see. So then having so Ceres, should I talk about that? No, let's talk about the Sun square Chiron. So your Chiron is in Taurus, as it is for a lot of my clients these days. Um, so a Taurus, Chiron represents our pain, right? And to have it in Taurus in the fifth house is very interesting. A lot of people that I run into who have that, there's typically something in the fifth house, it's the house of Leo, about the inner child. So a lot of people that I see with that type of Chiron, there's some pain that needs to be fixed in relation to the inner child and just allowing the inner child to just be the inner child. Um, sometimes it's something along the lines of having to have grown up too fast. Um, so it can be a lot of different things. If you're forced to grow up too fast by whatever circumstances, like I said, the moon in the 12th house could speak to a mother that was not present, or physically, metaphorically, whatever, psychologically. There's a million different potentials. So the Taurus, the like one of the best things you can do with a Taurus Chiron is something like yoga, something like meditation, something that gets you feeling more embodied. Because people with that, sometimes they can have issues around self-esteem and even issues around their own body, in some type of way. So, doing things that relate to that exact thing is obviously really good. Um, Now, the fifth house one, that element is more about doing things that get you in touch with that inner child. So when it comes to partnerships, it's important. Also, we'll talk about the Venus and the Mars and Pisces, of course, but you know there's a certain level of balance between seriousness and kind of just like letting go and fun, um, for relationships. And I think that when you have something like that in your chart, it can be very, very, very powerful to have, friendships, relationships, whatever, of all types that can, that lighten things up, right? That lead to that kind of inner child healing. Um, because ultimately moving away from Capricorn, like I said, it's a stuck, crystallized karmic emotional patterns, right? So moving away from that, there there is a need, like, to laugh and to have fun, um and to let go, because that is ultimately what the authentic self is about. And sometimes one of the low, like if you think about low and you have your Capricorn Black Moon Lilith. Black Moon Lilith represents, it's not a planet, but it's kind of like our lower energy, us at our lowest vibe, if you want to put it like that. So to have it there, can speak to, well, there's a lot that goes into, but it could be, issues around needing to control things, kind of like a failure, fear of failure, um and sometimes people with that can be very controlling, and they need, it's just like a big, big need to learn to kind of surrender and let go, just in general. So, with this placement, with that known, I think that the way you move away from that is, of course, yes, like high Capricorn energy is very responsible. It's full of honor. So, to have that edge of rising with Neptune gives you this real ability of being like the creator, the person that can make stuff happen over the long haul. Like start something and then just continue with it, like through, like get past different things that come up. I always call them not setbacks or the boulders in front of the path. Um, to have the Pisces and the Capricorn is very, very, very strong. But there is a need with Capricorn energy to have that sense of humor because sometimes Capricorn can be overly serious. So to have the Black and Loth there, yeah, there's a need to not take things too seriously. Esme, stop it, Esme. No. So yeah, um, with more of like so with the Chiron square to the sun, a lot of the times that speaks to. I'll go back on camera. A lot of times that speaks to a wound around the father, right? That speaks to a wound around the father. And people with that, especially since it's coming from the fifth house, it could be an energy that prohibits someone from feeling like they can truly shine in their life. And they have to get past this childhood wound in order to really see themselves fully. Like I said, usually connected to the father, and really have that real confidence. Because as an Aquarius, Aquariuses are different, and that Pisces, like a lot of Neptune energy with the Pisces and Venus in Pisces, and then the Neptune on the ascendant, that is also very otherworldly, heavenly Neptunian energy, right? So people who are Neptunian people mixed with that Jupiterian, mixed with that Uranus, like those two planets, like Uranus, which rules Aquarius, that's the one who's different. That's the one who sees, that's the genius, the person who thinks outside the box. Neptune is the person who has this unbelievable empathy and on like a spiritual level, the spirit, they're used to these heavenly realms. So when they come down to earth, there can be all these like negative things, these things that really, really hurt them. So um, sometimes they can like put a guard up and not let people in. So it's really about kind of getting past that childhood wound that allows you to kind of open up and just be goofy and all that and creative, right? Because the fifth house is also about creativity. Um, and that wound can end up being the greatest lesson, right? And it can give one once they overcome it, and this ability to really shine as their unique self, and then be a healer, whether it's for their work or just in general to people around them, even to kids if you have kids, based on the lessons they learned, right? So when we look at the Venus, right, which squares Uranus, interesting. Um, so Venus and Mars and Pisces are energies that, like when it comes to love, right? Venus and Pisces, they always want to see the good. And that's such a beautiful thing about Venus and Pisces. They want to really merge with their partner, right? Now, the only warning with Venus and Pisces is sometimes it can be overly idealistic in love. And it can see only the good, the rose-colored glasses, only the good, the potential in someone, right? And that can get them into trouble. But ultimately, you know, very, very in tune with the arts, with the kind of like right-brained, like really good artists to have your Venus conjunct Mars in Pisces. Um, but sometimes with Mars and Pisces, there can be a difficulty. It's in the third house, so this is actually really good for the mind. Both of these, right? Um, but Mars and Pisces is great because it pushes one. Mars is your action, your assertiveness function. So it pushes one towards like a spiritual path, right? And very, very high intuition as well. In the third house, an ability to kind of voice that, right? Now, the fact that Mars and Pisces, sometimes Mars and Pisces, Mars and Cancer can have issues with being assertive and with sticking up for themselves and with boundaries, right? So that's another thing that one, in your case, can take from your ascendant, from your South Node in Capricorn, which is like, and I've spoken to people who've had similar things who have said that they don't have problems with boundaries because the South Node, the been there, done that, the thing you really passed in a past life, Capricorn is all about boundaries, and that to have it in the 11th house, like I said before, usually makes one more like more picky, of course, to be in the 10th house in classes, but still with friends, right? So, one thing is like to not resort to like victim like behavior. And to, like there can be some frustration because it can be difficult for, it's such a peaceful placement, and it can be difficult for someone with that to voice to voice like to the lowest energy of that is like, yeah, victim like behavior, kind of passive aggression, not being able to communicate like how they feel because they don't want to like rock the boat per se. But what can happen is that, yeah, there's a need to learn the boundaries. But Mars in Pisces also, like I said, very very creative. That deep drive for spirituality. But like the good thing about being in the third house is the ability to state ideas and thoughts and all that quite strongly. But it's just like, yeah, it can be yeah, it can sometimes be a little bit um challenging being in Pisces, right? But then the fact that they combine is actually very good. Venus conjunct Mars, I had this too. And it makes one really love to kind of share adventures with their loved ones. To It definitely adds a level. um the Mars, the way it affects the Venus is that it will actually make it a little bit more assertive. It definitely adds a lot, and then the Venus will definitely add a lot of charm. So being able to communicate your need, to understand your very unique needs, especially in relationships, is so important. And then being able to state them, right? Um, Sometimes people with Venus conjunct Mars can have like very high expectations of people too, and there can be this level of disappointment in relationships if that there's kind of like once the rose colored glasses come off, which they always do at some point of the first fight or whatever. And this obviously gets better with age, but um there can be just very it just creates a very very passionate, very strong desire for affection and love. And it can kind of sometimes make a level of intimacy that's very very high, that not everyone, like, it can make people come off a little bit strong. But also it makes finding new partners, or just partners in general, it makes it quite easy, because there is a kind of magnetism that comes with Venus and Mars being together, right? Very usually it's quite flirty, and it is a good aspect. So yeah, also it's just good for overall popularity. Um, yeah. And like with that one, it's like very, so like how, like with Venus and Mars together, the relationship you have with, I guess in your case would be your father, is very very important, and very linked to, you know uh romantic relationships. And with the North Node being on the descendant, like I said, all your important romantic relationships super super karmic. And when you have something like this in your chart, it speaks to, just how like some relationships have a certain amount of time they're meant to last. Some are meant to be long long term. um so there is a level of kind of that constant updating, right? Because vertex eighth house also, in Leo, it's like the doorway to higher awareness is through fun, and through letting go, and through allowing that inner child in. So that's super, super important to that North Node in Cancer journey of, you know, becoming more in touch with the emotions, right? Um, which, as I said, for a Sag moon, it's not that Sag moons are not attached to their emotions, it's that they would rather look at the glass half full than half empty. So sometimes they need to have, you know, whether it's talking to like a friend or someone they know that is kind of like an Aquarius Sag is magical, um, but not always 2 feet on the ground. They're very magical, and then with the Pisces energy as well. Um, you know, when I say realism, I'm not saying like sobering, boring realism. I'm saying that at least in that department of life, it's important to have that, right? Now, with the Venus squaring um Uranus and Jupiter. So yeah, and one's there. Okay. Would the Mars be? Yeah, so with that, the Jupiter one, it's just like kind of it's just like it's not a bad square because Venus and Jupiter, any connection, it is very, it's probably the best square in astrology. It's just like it can make someone kind of lose interest a little bit fast, like and that's kind of similar to the Venus and Uranus, right? Because Venus is in Pisces. Like I said, it really wants that like two souls becoming one type of love. But there can be a psychological split here because Uranus will want that person, especially in Aquarius, to still keep that independence in relationships, right? So people who have Venus square Uranus, a lot of times I talk to them, there can be issues with commitment, and they can sometimes feel that's why they need a lot of freedom in their relationships, because sometimes they can feel like anything that's like too clingy, um like where they don't have that freedom, and like where they don't feel, at least inside them, that they have that freedom to be their individual self, especially with the South Node on the ascendant, where there's that karmic tendency to be more independent. This, it really speaks further to that North Node goal of learning to compromise and um, kind of being the artist of your own unique kind of type of relationship, right? Everyone, we have this societal, this is how it's supposed to be, as I said before. Someone with a chart like yours, it's really about, yeah, being an artist, and kind of building it in your own way. I want to see one thing really quick. Okay, cool. So then the Mercury is trining Chiron. So from Taurus, it's with Ceres. So you're definitely someone, through your voice, through your, the way you communicate, the way you come through, you're able to really put people at ease. You definitely, like a Mercury trine Chiron, is very, very good at understanding other people's pain and other people's suffering, very empathetic energy, great listener, knowing the right words at the right time. And it's a staple for someone who's a natural healer. Now, Mercury, um, in Capricorn in the first, that creates kind of this, dare I say, entrepreneurial, very independent thinker, very curious, always looking for new ways to learn. That goes with the Sag moon. And then Mercury in Capricorn will definitely add a level of, you know, it'll make someone a more, I guess, careful thinker. Um, Usually people with Mercury in Capricorn, there is a level of logic to kind of how they move through life and how they learn. But with all this otherworldly energy you have, I think it would combine quite nicely. Where you're not like too much in the over idealism. I think this, with your ascendant, of course, will bring things down to earth. So I think that's a good place to have it with your whole chart. Um, but yeah, like going back to kind of Uranus, like I said, you get when you're able to ground yourself, you can just get these flashes of intuition. You're like, how do I know this? how do I know this? Same with the Neptune. Um, and it makes one able to really, really kind of probe deep into the human psyche. It's very good for like someone who's like a psychologist or someone whose work or whose life depends on understanding humans on a deep level. Um, yeah, and then the Neptune, just mega compassion. And then the fact that Neptune's rising also, it gives someone like this very dreamy look to them typically, right? This very like mystique, like this mystique to their kind of their they just how they look and whatnot. Um, and just yeah, like someone who wants to take their imaginary world, their dream world per se, and express that through some type of like creative artistic outlet. Um, but yeah, like I said, there can be projection on you, so it's really important to be very, very firm in your identity and know who you are, what you stand for, and all that. So more with the love stuff. So of course there's that real romantic energy, but there's this mix between like Neptune Pisces and Uranus Aquarius, because the Juno, which represents your perfect mate, is in Aquarius, right? In the second house. So the second house, Juno, really valuing that security, that kind of like that fairness, that that real groundedness within that relationship. And then in Aquarius, it goes back to that needing that freedom to express your authentic self and even learn about your more and more about your authentic self. So relationships that can push that are huge, right? Because there is a lot of energy, like it's a very traditional relationship, like with the square at Uranus and this, um, to rebel if things are kind of like boring or whatever, set in stone in a certain way. So yeah, even more energy about the spiritual path. Part of Fortune and Vesta are in Pisces. So, Vesta in Pisces is definitely like someone who wants to be of service to humanity, make the world a better place with their work. Um, and they can sometimes feel a little bit overwhelmed by their work unless it is towards making the world a better place. And that also goes, with your Pluto on the midheaven, super strong placement. That makes someone like a powerhouse. Like once they really figure out this is what I want to do, they can have like a very great leadership, like very, very good leader, someone who's resourceful, definitely more of a leader than a follower for sure. Um, and Pluto is about death, rebirth, transformation. So it could be the case that a career that's very transformative or that helps other people transform, but even something like, yeah, like it's very good for psychology or something that does involve diving deep into the psyche of others. But it can really, Pluto on the MC can just make someone a powerhouse, like whatever they do, and they're seen by the world as a whole as someone that is powerful, um, and a leader. And because it's Libra, you know, Libra midheavens definitely, want a profession where beauty and fairness, and it could even be business, right? Because it scales, but usually social skills, you know, something social comes into the picture, right? And definitely a more harmonious kind of laid back work environment. So let's see. So yeah, the vertex I was talking about in the eighth house, that kind of speaks to like these deep transformative experiences. I have a lot of clients with eighth house vertex. Being whether it's in studying the esoteric, the occult, anything like with sexual taboos, stuff like that. Um, that's really what takes them to their kind of like higher awareness. And then in Leo, it's really about you know, just wanting to be not necessarily noticed, but really wanting to be in that inner child, and to be that authentic self. And the more people are very drawn to these Vertex and Leo people because they shine very bright, and it definitely creates someone who, through love, unconditional love for humanity, that is their doorway, their doorway to enlightenment, to abundance, right? But it all goes back to that Chiron in the fifth house, which is about healing kind of that sense of self and being very, very firm in that. So you see that's kind of a theme here, right? Let's see. So Mars, yeah, that's that one. Yeah, and then part of fortune, which is not a planet, but it's a point calculated with the sun, moon, and ascendant. The fact that that's in Pisces in the third, um, it's saying that, like, that sense of spiritual unity is really the greatest joy, right? Um, by being of service to humanity and doing something that really makes you feel like that connection with other people on a deep level, that's where, the greatest joy can come from. Um, and yeah, and then third house, part of fortune, I would say, like, through, um, like gaining these communication skills, right? And just like becoming very, very good at the art of communicating. And the more you're able to kind of develop your thoughts about, truth and all that, as it kind of relates to high spirituality, that is an area where, when you're doing that, where things are very, very, that really lightens everything up in the chart. What else can I say about that? But yeah, definitely, like, there's an energy in this chart where, when you really dial into like what it is you want to do, there's this real level of like responsibility and consistency that you can have. And people, take notice of that. Of course, a lot of times with these, the Saturn place where it is, it's after the Saturn return that things really open up in terms of your largest like life goals, and it can take some, some different trial and error and whatnot, before them for 30 years or so, especially when it comes to like finding like the real tribe. Mhm, 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 mhm. Yeah, definitely a bunch about the occult, esoteric, and just always wanting to learn with that Sag moon, that Jupiter Neptune conjunction. Yeah, just always like being able to really expand yourself through anything that's spiritual. And yeah, it's not everybody in the world that can really relate to that. So that kind of goes back to that whole, Chiron energy, and just, the more that you just don't give a shit about other people's opinions, and just go on your own path, the better. So you also have Pallas rising, so, in Capricorn, so that gives someone who has that the ability to really plan ahead, almost like a chess player in life. Um, First house Pallas, it can make one very, very a good decision maker. Um, I like that about Sag Moons too, is that Sag Moon gives you the ability to see the big picture, right, in life. That's why it's so good at meaning making. Something can happen. It's like Sag Moons are on a mountain seeing everything zoomed out, right? But what can make, I'm gonna pop this back. What can make a Sag Moon unhappy? Because, I always talk about the moon sign as being so important for, um, you know, obviously the sun is your identity. It's who you are. Your ascendant is how you project yourself, right? But the moon is more unconscious. The moon, so the fact that your sun and your moon are very much are sextile, meaning they have a very good relationship with each other. It's almost like a metaphor of like your yin and your yang side. If you're a ship with two captains, sun and moon, they're both going in the same direction, similar direction, right? But with a Sag moon in the 12th, I think that one can it just it reinstates that need for that spiritual kind of that spiritual path, right? Because a 12th house moon can the way that it defines itself, like I've said many times, it's not going to be like it is for everyone else. And once again, there can be lots of trial and error. But with Sag, when they get stressed, they want to go on an adventure. When their life is getting stagnant, when it feels like it's just kind of a repeat, they don't like that. So, you know, I'm not going to sit here and say that every Sag moon needs to constantly be traveling. I mean, yeah, being with different cultures is the best thing for Sag moon. But, you have a big mission. You have a 29-degree Pluto. So you're really, really here, in your Dharma. It's very, very important. And you're really meant to transform yourself and others. If you were a psychologist, I would not be surprised, or some kind of healer. But yeah, so the Sag moon, it's not necessarily that. It's that it's the like the either the physical expansion or the metaphoric expansion. So, for example, like it's impossible for every Sag moon in the world to always be traveling and whatever. But even meeting people from different cultures, meeting people who have different outlooks on life, right? Understanding that there's different truths for every person. And people get to these truths at different times, trying out different, like for example, I'm a Sag moon and I'll watch content from people that I don't agree with at all, just to see, okay, wow, it's interesting that person thinks that way, right? That intellectual open-mindedness. So the metaphoric expansion can just be from learning a lot, which can be done from the home. But you definitely have the chart of someone who would be quite good with change, lots of mutable energy. So someone who can kind of go with the flow in life, right? So, the goal is obviously to be able to do that, to be able to be flexible, but also to be able to still be grounded, because in the second house sun really, really helps that. I think of the second house sun as someone who, where there's a lot of importance in terms of really setting, it's almost like what do countries have? Not Declaration of Independence. What I'm thinking of. Like a constitution of like a personal constitution that kind of runs the show. That is very, very important. And you can kind of base all your decisions, whether it's relationships, whether it's life, whatever, on that. So, and then Sirius being, their Sirius, you can think of it like a second, but not obviously as important moon. It's kind of how you feel nurtured. So in Capricorn, Sirius Capricorn, we feel nurtured by, their work and their organization abilities and just their ability to really build something. And they'll like people who, whether it's in a relationship, who are willing to really build something, but build it in the right way. And with Mercury, it also speaks to someone who can really, once again, nurture through their words. Um, and it's actually good for being able to speak everything is like a muscle in astrology, right? You have to work the muscles. I mean, more the outer planets, but still with this Sirius and Mercury, it can be very, very good at um at kind of voicing one's needs. But then with Black Moon Lilith close by with Mercury, there is that need. Like I said, Black Moon Lilith can be in Capricorn can be like, how you beat yourself um with control. So there's that need for Black Moon Lilith Capricorn people to understand that they are valued, that they are great, and that, learning to like work well and yeah, just like that need for control sometimes remember it's just the potential with this one with the Black Moon Lilith. It's not a real planet. um yeah, that need for control and just letting other people prove themselves, and working good with other people is very important. All right. Let's see. I can't stress enough that this Jupiter also in the 12th has to do with spiritual protection. So 12th house Jupiter people, I have this too. We have so much in common. Um, it definitely speaks to yeah, to spiritual protection. And wait, was I saying it was conjunct Neptune? I meant to say it was conjunct Uranus. My bad. But yeah, the Jupiter conjunct Uranus. Did I say Neptune? Huh. Wait, why doesn't that show that? That's so weird. Oh, there it is. Okay. Yeah. Well, that is just going to make it so you are very much yeah, like there's even more of an expansion when it comes to those downloads I was talking about, when it comes to that ability, this kind of boundless ability in the world of spirituality. Like you have like a 10 out of 10 when it comes to, spiritual potential. I gotta say, spiritual, psychological, all that stuff is a healer. It's like all over your chart. Um, of course, there's like I can't state this enough that there's so many different routes that one can take to be that, right? It can be in any kind of job profession. All right. So then I see that Pluto's trine and Saturn and Pluto are both trine the North Node and descendant. So, you know, that definitely gives a lot of potential for long-term relationship. I think Saturn, when it relates to love astrology, is like the glue that keeps things together. So there could be, that would be like a sign of like a very karmic marriage. You know, definitely. And then with Pluto, it's like this very transformational when it comes to relationships in terms of even helping you, push forward towards your greatest dharma. Okay, let's go back to me. There I am. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. Okay. Um, I was talking about the Sag Moon. Yeah. So just Sag Moon, it's that balance between movement, adventure, but also not overdoing it. But one thing for Sag Moon that's true, always have to be learning. In your case, it's very, very esoteric, So with I think also, oh, here's something. I think with the Jupiter and the Uranus together, the right teachers, the right people to tell you truths about yourself to increase your awareness will come at the right times. And you'll really expand a lot through, and it could even be like groups of people, that help you in that respect. So that's really interesting stuff. All right, let me see what's up with some stars and some asteroids. Let's start here. Ooh, so you have a more conjunct Mercury. So a more one of my favorite asteroids because it has to do with unconditional love. So when you have that with your Mercury, your mind, your communication, you have the ability. It gives one like a very, very, very like that. It makes one speak with so much love, and it gives one the ability. Once again, this is like what the third or fourth time I said this to really, really, really heal. And as a healer, one of the most important things, like if me as a healer, for example, if I was doing charts with people and I was like, oh, these people suck, or these people, they don't have a chance to whatever, like you're not going to heal someone. Like think about the psychologist who has like some kind of like hubris, arrogance, and they have clients and they just like in their head they're thinking, oh, this person sucks, I'm better than this person. Like I know it happens. And how is that going to actually, I mean, there's like when I was in, I did two graduate programs in psychology. I remember we had like one thing we learned that was like 60% or something of the healing in a therapeutic alliance is from the or in a therapeutic relationship is through the actual relationship. So more than the techniques or anything. So yeah, that is beautiful. The more I love seeing it. I've seen a lot of my you know clients who have charts like yours who are just like I just like I always feel kind of like there's a part of me where I'm like when I see a chart like this where I'm just like just such amazing healer vibes, right? There's a part of me that feels like I don't want someone who's not, let's say like you're not doing a career or whatever that's related to this. I don't want that person to think like, oh, because I'm not doing psychology or astrology or a million different things like doctor or whatever, something that's like a coach or counselor, whatever. Like that's not the point. Because one, with your chart, like there's a lot of destiny in terms of your dharma. Allergies just hit. Two, like you can be a healer without being a healer, Um, it can just be for the people around you. It could be in the family. Um, I'd say a lot of the percentages of my chart readings, I see things in the chart where I'm like, you are meant to be the person who breaks some kind of cycle in your family's karma, right? Um, and I think to some extent, it kind of makes sense for everyone, because everyone, can have that chance, right? Everyone has that potential, um, unless they have a family that's not like that. Um, so I just want to put that out there. So you have Eros on your sun. Interesting. So that creates something where your identity, right, your sun, is closely tied to this very this deep sensuality of Eros, right? Uh, Also, it's very creative. So usually there's a lot of artistic gifts that come with this. Um, I don't like talking about like words like erotic or I don't know. I just feel weird with female clients, even though I'm not seeing you, but that is linked to that. To a lot of erotic energy, um, fantasies, stuff like that. Almost like creative when it comes to like that kind of eros erotic kind of energy, right? Um, so with that though, with Eros, there is that need to feel fully appreciated, fully seen, and almost praised. Um, which with that Chiron and Taurus, that's the kind of healing. But I think yoga and stuff like that is so good for Chiron and Taurus because it gets you in touch with the body and stuff like that. But and the filming yourself, that kind of stuff, really good. But yeah, stuff like I don't know, just different. It could be even like more taboo forms of like of intimacy. Um, yeah, it's a very, very sexual placement. And even having Venus conjunct Mars is very sexual too. And it can relate to fetishes, stuff like that. Let's see. Hmm, Midheaven's kind of close to Spica. And then Uranus is close to Antares. So yeah, Neptune's on the galactic center, so that's like you're able to like get these downloads from like this very, very it's like a black hole, right? Full of cosmic information. So when you're meditating or when you're dreaming, like pay attention to that, to what comes because it's very amazing. And then Spica, it's less than 2 degrees from the midheaven, so that's one of the best stars possible for good fortune. It's just one of the most fortunate like stars you can have there for success. Um, and just like very, very kind of philosophical, um, very inspired person, very worldly, and yeah, it's very fortunate for business and just everything. It's just one of those stars that's just amazing. And Centaurus is the which you were and more Uranus. Was there another one? Centaurus is one of the real stars, but I need to see. I don't know what it does with Uranus, if they even have. It's more like ancient astrology stuff. Um, but it is also close to Jupiter, so that is really, really good for. It just gives like a like kind of like with the palace like a lot of like kind of strategic ability. It can even create daredevils. Um, Lots of like mental alertness as well. And then Uranus, let's do it says abnormal and extreme ideas. There's not much on that. Yeah. So someone, yeah, just outside the box thinker, which goes with your chart. Yeah. All right. Well, that is all, my friend. So quick thing before I let you go. So most people, what they do is that they get this reading. I think you have a follow up, right? So most people, what they do is they get this reading and the follow up from the get go, and then so the follow up is an hour where we're talking just we're comparing your lived experience with everything I talked about today, right? So what people normally do is that they add the current astrology slash spiritual alignment. It's just what I named it. Basically, and I go over everything I know about current astrology. Um, And that's like solar return, transits, house ingress, solar arc, progressions, like everything. I know some astrologers will have a different reading for each one, but I'll do it all in one. So instead of like 1 hour, we still do the first hour just about the chart. Then it's like a seamless transition into, and it's all live. It's not a long wait. My next opening, few weeks, sometimes less. Whenever you're ready, if you want to do this, and you have to follow up regardless. So yeah, it's really awesome, and I would do it for a $50 reduction. So yeah, you just gotta remind me that I said the $50 reduction, and yeah, so it was a pleasure. Let me see one thing. And that one usually ends up being, yeah, so it ends up usually being around 3 hours, first hour of the follow-up, and then after that, all the current astrology. So thank you. 1 hour 45. Wow, I'm doing long ones. Well, it was fun. So thank you so much, and talk soon. Ciao.